Welcome to CAS 2402 Transitions from Campus to Career Success to Wealth Creation and Protection, because that's the journey you're on. I've decided to go ahead and start posting these publicly on YouTube so you can go ahead and turn them on to your friends far beyond the class. If any of these inspire you to do so, have at it. It'll be at the Learn, Earn, Retire YouTube channel. So here you go. So today we're going to talk about buying your first home. All right. Now, typically I have a realtor in the classroom, but because of lockdown here, we're in Ohio right now, and just about everywhere else in the country, and if not, we should. I'm going solo here, but let me kind of give you some insight. Now, again, there's a lot to learn here. This is just a basic awareness that you're going to get, but kind of think broader than just purchasing the home. What goes into that process, and how do you go ahead and best approach it? All right, so the questions you need, to think through prior to buying a home is, what kind of work do you do? How long do you expect to be in that job or location? Do you have the down payment? Do you have an emergency account? Do you have that buffer account that if, goodness gracious, you got laid off and you're, you had just bought the home? Do you have a shock absorber that's going to go ahead and protect you so you don't put yourself in the harm's way? Are you contributing to retirement? It's one thing to go ahead and buy your first home, but by then I hope you're putting around 15% of your compensation into long-term wealth creation. One day, be able to put your feet up and enjoy it. Is debt under control? Are you going in with like a bunch of credit card debt? Don't quite have your down payment, don't have the emergency fund, and you're not contributing up to the match at your employer for long-term retirement, wealth creation? You're probably not ready to buy a house. Okay, so then just go ahead and make sure you get those things right. And have you pre-qualified? And that's really powerful, because if you go into a bank and they ask you some questions, and then they'll tell you whether you're ready, because they're going to go ahead and commit to loaning to you. Also, that is a powerful document to have when you walk into a house and someone else wants to make an offer, you're making an offer, but you show, hey, I am already qualified for the mortgage. Take a look at this. It gives you a superior position. Okay. So are you ready? Do you know your financial position? How much you can afford? And, will you be comfortable with the new cash flow? If you haven't figured that out, again, you're not ready. What does the housing market look like in your area? Is it going up? Is it going down? Sideways? Is one area hotter than another? And you want to, really, this is a huge commitment you're making. To most people, this is the biggest investment, or the biggest purchase, if you will, they're ever going to make, is their home and the mortgage that goes with it. View your stage of life. Are you apt to get relocated in a couple of years? That's a big deal. Are you going to need room for a family or extended family? Are you getting ready to retire? The average time people are in a house is about 10 years. So you need to live in that house typically between 3 and 5 years in order to break even if you sell, because there's cost with selling. And then you also want to go ahead and look at your credit score. And if your credit score is not where you want it to be, that's going to go ahead and affect that mortgage you're about to get. So that's a really, really big deal. Again, so these are questions, that you go through to make sure you're ready to go forward. And then residential appreciation. So homes typically, from the research and reading I've done, will go up slightly better than inflation. Usually keeps pace with inflation. But the baby boom, the previous generation, they saw extraordinary, growth in home prices while they were living there. It's probably not wise to expect that's going to happen. Therefore, a home used to be viewed as an investment. Homes now should be viewed as an investment today, but not viewed as an investment today, rather viewed as a home. I mean, it's kind of cool because if you buy this home, if you fix it up, if you pay it off, it's all yours. Somebody's not going to say, well, I want to rent this to somebody else. If you're renting, that could happen. And so you've got a certain level of pride and security from getting that first home. However, you will build, you'll build wealth over time, because the further you get into your mortgage, the more that mortgage payment's going to be to pay off the principal amount you borrowed. Like if you, hypothetically bought a home for $100,000, and 30 years go by and the home is going to be paid off, then you're in good shape and you don't drag debt into retirement, and you'd be in a really, really good position. So, but usually people go through a series of homes by the time they get to their dream home or their retirement home. So you just make sure you're thinking through a strategy. It's not just go out, let's get one, because my friends got it and I was at a party last night and that's really great and everyone else seems to be buying a home, so I'm going to buy a home. I'm just trying to say slow down and ask yourself these questions. So real estate financing history. Well, there was a savings and loan crisis. It extended from 1986 to 1993. There was the Great Recession in 2008. So that went on for a few years. And then, and now this coronavirus certainly has effects, and nobody can, everybody has an opinion of what might happen, but we'll know in a few years what happens here. So generally, after you get these economic shocks to the system, you need to have higher credit scores. The banks start to go, wait, I've had too many people fail or not be able to make the payment in these trying times. So they start to get more focused on higher credit scores. Stronger background checks on income. They want to make sure that nobody's overstating. The lenders began to lend less, fewer mortgages, so it's harder. You got to really shop around to find one. And then the appraisals get more conservative, because what happens is if all of a sudden a bank, somebody went through the Great Recession and they had to give up their home, they couldn't afford it anymore, and the bank ends up with the home, and the bank doesn't want the home, okay? And then they go to sell it, and then, oh my goodness, they don't really get the price, and they look at the appraisal and said, hey, and they call the appraiser in and goes, look, you said it was going to be this. And they're under a lot of pressure. Now, they didn't know the Great Recession was coming, but what happens when that dynamic starts to happen, the appraisers get much more conservative. And that's one of the things when you buy a home, you make it subject to financing, and then you go ahead, and one of the elements is you have to have an appraisal to make sure that the home is worth what you're paying for it. So this is all to protect you, but really there to protect the bank. Okay, I'm going to tell you, avoid for sale by owner, because especially during your first home, you need help and guidance, and a realtor can do that. There are people that call themselves real estate agents. There's not many around like that anymore. And then there's realtors. Realtors is a National Association of Realtors. These folks are well trained. There's great licensing requirements, ongoing education, and you want to go ahead, and my suggestion is we working with a realtor. If you say, wait, I'm going to get a better deal because this is going to be for sale by owner, then are you going to have the wisdom to ask the right questions? And if somebody's going for sale by owner, I found that those people typically are trying to save the 6% commission that they would be giving a realtor. And they believe their home is worth more than another one. You go into a realtor and they said, this one, well, we'll take a look at that, but I got 3 over here that you haven't seen. And there's a big advantage of dealing with a realtor. And I don't think you're going to save money on a for sale by owner, again, because the people that are doing that are, selling in that fashion, are looking to maximize their gain as well. But you need the guidance. You need the professional input. You need somebody who can walk you through every aspect, whether it was the appraisal, the inspection, or the financing itself. So lending, your new mortgage. It depends on geographic reasons. Conventional, all of this goes into the secondary market, because banks sometimes will get a mortgage and you got it with your local bank, and then all of a sudden you start to get a statement from another bank in another region because they bought it up and they sell mortgages off. And then there's even online lenders. There's all sorts of things. We're not going to get into the particulars. FHA, USDA, VA, these are different vehicles that you can use. These agencies have programs that can go ahead and help you secure your best mortgage. But this is where you need to really go shop and do this. And I would do this in advance of buying, because then you're under the gun. Once you picked out the house, you've kind of fallen in love with it. And if you haven't done your homework, so homework first, then start looking. Okay. So then you want to save for the down payment. Residential down payments can vary. And again, economic times, it can move around, but 10% is fair estimate, but you'd have to take a look at when you're getting ready to buy. There's two types of loans. There's fixed rate, which would say, okay, this is going to be a 30-year note or a 15-year note, and the interest rate is this for the entire time. And then there's variable interest, where it'll go ahead and usually looks much more attractive in the beginning, but every 5 years, according to some economic indicators, we can adjust the mortgage. So if all of a sudden interest rates are going up, you can expect that your mortgage will go up every blank number of years, that there's a window where there's an adjustment. So I think it's probably wise to use fixed terms, for 30 years or 15 years, whatever you want to go ahead and do. And then there's an interesting thing that I learned after I had bought a home out in California. I got a note, and it was financed through the Bank of America, and I got a letter in the mail, and it looked like it was Bank of America, but it wasn't. And what they did was they were saying, "Hey, listen, we can go ahead and turn your loan into you pay every other week, and we can take about 7 years off the end of your note." I'm going, wow, 30-year mortgage now becomes a 23-year mortgage? Well, how do you do that? And what they do is, if you pay every other week, you end up making 1 extra months of payments. You make 13 months of payments, you pay 26 weeks is every other week, which would be the equivalent of 13 months. And so that's one way. Plus, they're getting their money quicker because every 2 weeks they're getting money. And so they factor that in. So I called Bank of America and I said, "Is this you?" And they go, No, that's not us. But we've got that program if you want it. I'm thinking, when were you going to call me and tell me that? Well, they weren't. Okay, but we did sign up for the program, and we found it to be terrific. Method of accelerating payments. You could take a 30-year note, but make the payment as if it was a 15-year note, and ostensibly the math comes out pretty clear that it'd be 15 years, and you'll be up and running. You would have paid it off. Or simply, you can put additional money at your mortgage, but be careful to say this is to go to principal. You want that principal amount to go down. And so there's ways to getting ahead of this, and folks do that, because as you get all the other elements we've been talking about, debt and your spending, and all under control, a paid off house is a beautiful rock of Gibraltar to grow your life on. Okay, interest rates over the last 48 years for 30-year fixed. 1981, they were 18.32%, almost like credit card debt. I remember those years. Wow, ouch. In 2012, they're 3.13, and they're very, very low right now. So now these interest rates, especially because of this corona pandemic, are potentially the lowest interest rates you're going to see in your life. And so, I wouldn't rush and do something before your time, but certainly some of the audience for this material and the alums that have taken the class it might be, this is the time to go ahead and make that jump. Then you got to decide on 15 or 30 and fixed or variable. And I'd suggest 30, and I would say fixed interest. And then if you want to pay larger payments in order to go ahead and bake that down and be done in 15 years, you can. But if you went through, let's say you got laid off and you say, well, no, I'll go back to the 30-year payments for a little while, so I'll stretch my cash a little bit, then I'll go back to my aggressive strategy of reducing principal. Okay. So saving for the down payment. Do you have an emergency account? So, when the hot water breaks, you no longer call the landlord to fix it. You have to fix it. Here's a metaphor. The roof and the leak in the roof. That's up to you. So an emergency account becomes really, really important. Not that it always wasn't, but it's more important. And remember, the more money you put down, the lower your payment's going to be. If you had $1,000 a month payment with 0% down, it'd be $1,000. If you were going to put 0% down on a loan, and let's say the payment was going to be $1,000. But if you put 5% down, the payment would be $950. This is pretty simple math. If you put 20% down, the payment would be $800. And there's a thing called PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. And if the bank thinks you're a little too close to the edge financially, they can require that you do this, and that costs money. So you want to make sure, again, this is part of the shopping around, and I would do that prior to shopping for the home itself. Closing costs can run 3%. Lender, title company, all sorts of folks have their hand up trying to go ahead and do that. But you need to understand before you get to the closing table just what this is going to cost you. Also, you're going to have to bear the cost of a move. And in some places you go in, hey, the seller took the washer and dryer with them. And now you got to buy that, and sometimes as the refrigerator goes, you don't know. You got to check in your region what happens, and make sure you're going through that. But again, this is all getting ready to go. Okay, then we talked about getting a pre-approved from your lender. So shop lenders, and look for the one with the best terms. You got to submit your financials. This is great if you've been in programs like Mint, like we're telling you to do, where you can show over time what you're doing. You're going to show tax returns. You're going to show your resume. So say, look, I have had this really good career. I'm highly employable. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Tell them how much you want to borrow and what kind of loan you want. And then the lender will verify your financials. They'll check your credit score. And they'll brief you on terms and give you a letter of qualification, okay? This is really, really, really terrific. Okay, now the rule. Monthly payments should be no more than 25% of your gross income. So take a look at that and then try to figure out what kind of house you can afford. Now, Dave Ramsey's organization, he talks about, hey, get a 15-year mortgage. And the reason for that is maybe you'll take a more modest home, but you're not going to be in much larger debt. And also, the other thing I would add on to this is if the bank says you can buy a $250,000 home, doesn't mean you have to buy the $250,000 home. You can always, slack back and say, no, I'm going to buy this one over here for $170,000. And be well within your means and easy to, have some more discretionary spending and more wealth creation, okay? Then you need to find a real estate agent. And again, I'm telling you to look for a realtor. Somebody who will help you get the best deal. Avoid a friend. A lot of times people have a friend or a cousin or a brother. And usually when you start to get that, or sometimes, not all the time, but often, well, they don't really work at it full time. So that's not going to get you your best advice. So you want to look for a really good realtor. The agent interview questions, and this was courtesy of Dave Ramsey's website. Specific experience assisting home buyers like you. So you say, people like me who are looking for this, how many of those have you worked with? Maybe they give you some references. Full-time real estate experience for at least 2 years. They're not doing this part-time. This isn't a hobby. This is serious business, and they're dedicated to it, and they're good at it. Great communication skills, because when it gets to the negotiation, the realtor is going to be negotiating with the buyer, if it or typically the buyer's realtor as well. And so having great communication skills is going to really be important. A super serving attitude that makes you feel like you're their only client. I mean, when they're talking to you, they're focused on you. They take your calls immediately. I mean, this is a big deal for you, and somebody who treats it like that. An impressively long list of sold homes every year. So look at all the homes that they've sold, and you realize, okay, these guys are active in the market. And exceptional experience in your local market. I mean, they really know the market, so they know, is this a dog? Is this priced a little too high? This would be a fair price. And guess what? If they're going to stick to their guns and they're not going to take your offer, I think we walk this one. And let me tell you why, and there's something else I want to show you. You want that kind of experience because, again, this is such a large expenditure with a long 15 to 30-year runway of financial commitment. So the house hunting process. So you make a list of what you want, and then are you willing to buy a home that needs work? Now, a lot of people don't mind this, especially young people when they start off, because, hey, listen, you can paint it, clean up the landscaping on the outside. Look at all the home makeover shows and stuff. If you do some stuff like that, and all of a sudden, pop, the appeal of the home goes way up. That means the value of the home is going to go way up, and we call that sweat equity, because your hard work on the weekends and the evenings to go ahead and bring the home up to something really, really special is really, really terrific. Don't compromise on location if you can. They say 3 most important things in real estate: location, location, location. So, but know that the most popular locations, the closest in, the ones that are in the neighborhoods that have all the great restaurants and taverns and that kind of stuff, you pay for that. But also you probably get that on the way out as well, when you sell it. Least expensive house in the best neighborhood. That is a really good strategy, especially if it's the least expensive house that's been beat down a little bit. Hasn't been painted in a while. It's the landscaping's overgrown. The inside looks very, very dated, and you figure out, I can go in over the next couple of years and really make this a sparkling gem in the neighborhood, and then you will get a spike in what the house is worth. So just make sure you don't overpay. If the home is tired, nice way to say it, just make sure you're paying for a tired home and not paying for a sparkling, beautiful home. Okay, research the school districts, even if you don't have kids, because a lot of times people, pick the school district first. They want to get their kids in a particular school district, and then they pick the house second. So being in a great school district usually keeps your resale value very, very, very high. Think about resale as part of your decision criteria. Okay, if I was to sell this home in 5 years, how hard would it be to get rid of it? How long would it take to get rid of it? And those kind of questions. How long does this take? Well, this, according to homes.com, it's 30 to 60 days for shopping, 14 days to 60 days contract to close, and 14 to 45 days until you get your first payment. So again, in advance of all this, I would do the questions that we ran through with you and just make sure you're ready. But this is a really exciting time in your life. Okay, submitting an offer. So this is where pre-approval will serve you well. Other people are bidding on the home because it's popular. They see what you see. And with your contract comes a pre-approval letter, so they realize, this person's going to get financed. The other person, how about if they get turned down and let these other people go? It gives you advantage. You put down a deposit, earnest money contract, and your realtor will tell you what that's about. Find out what items go with the home. Be very specific. Appliances, etc. We gave you some other ideas. Contingency. Usually the contract is contingent to a home inspection. And try to get a really good one. Hey, the roof, you're probably 3 years away from having to put a new roof on. Oh my goodness, that's a big expense. And you've got this hot water heater. I think it's on its last legs. Looks like it's about 18 years old. And then contingency is the appraisal. Hey, if you've made an offer but it doesn't appraise At or above that, well, then there's a problem, and then you can kind of get out of that contract if you want. And then the final mortgage approval. Even if you have your pre-qualified, you just make sure that the bank, under all these circumstances, I put the package in front of them, they're going to go ahead and do it. Okay, so nobody can take your deposit. And if for any of those reasons you decide to walk away from that deal, you get your money back, and then you set a close date. Pretty cool. Okay, home inspection is a key step. It's going to protect you financially. I use the example of the roof. I mean, roofs are expensive. Is there any structural problems? Does the basement leak? These guys know how to look for that. Other inspections is there termite damage? Is there radon, which is a gas that comes from the ground and that can cause health issues? And that stuff can be fixed. But all of this stuff can be remedied, but you want to make sure it's picked up on a home inspection. And so you really want a good inspector. But again, the realtor who's selling homes constantly will know good inspectors, and they'll be able to refer to you. If issues are found, you can either, so this is important, ask the seller, fix it. There is some structural damage, leaky basement, I want you to fix that. Or you can say, I tell you what, reduce the price, and then when I get it, I'll do the repairs. But then you got to make sure you know how much it's going to cost so you don't get caught in a bad place there. And live with it as is. You decided I want to take it anyway, I'm going to take the risk, or you can cancel the contract. So again, lots of steps as you go first home. And it was really great running this stuff by you. Again, this is tip of the iceberg so that you can go ahead and become aware of these things. And then you will also have this in the PDF package that will be available to you that you can look at and review. And there's lots of good stuff on the web that has this kind of information on it that will go ahead when you get to that stage of buying the first home. It's not just you think about, like, I'm going out, I'm looking, this is really cool. I'd love to live in this neighborhood, and this, that, and the other. There's a lot of work to do because this is such a big investment and it's such a long commitment to financing. Okay, wishing you well, and we'll see you next time.